The chicken wasn't even that good. Dry, overcooked, kind of spongy. But I was eating it like it was the last meal on earth because I had a gut feeling this family dinner was going to explode harder than my mom's pressure cooker back in 2003. It was supposed to be celebration night. My younger brother had just been promoted to middle management something or other, and my parents were acting like he'd won a Nobel Prize. They even invited some distant relatives and friends, all to show off. And me? I was invited because, well, they needed someone to take pictures. Literally. I walked in and my mom shoved her phone at me like I was the hired help. Make sure you get one from the left. That's his good side. It had been like this for years. I sat at the table, quietly chewing dry chicken, when someone brought up my job, which always goes about as well as lighting a cigarette in a fireworks warehouse. So, my dad says, swirling his wine like he's about to announce a hostile corporate takeover. Still doing those websites or whatever? Yeah, I said calmly. We're on track to hit $15 million this year. I could have said I was curing cancer, and he would have still made that same face, that confused walnut look. My mom chimed in with her signature sarcasm. Well, some of us prefer real jobs. You know, ones that come with health insurance and don't involve scamming strangers online. I laughed. Because honestly, what else do you do when your own mom basically calls you a digital hobo? But my dad wasn't done. He put down his fork, real dramatic-like. Stared at me like I just peed in his wine. Then he stood up, pointed his finger, and shouted. You're uneducated trash. Get out. You lowlife. The room went silent. I could hear someone's fork hit their plate like a tiny death knell. Now, here's where 90% of people might have caused a scene. But I didn't. I just stood up. Wiped my hands. Set my napkin down like I was leaving a job interview I knew I aced. Looked right at him, gave him the softest smile I could muster, and said, Okay. I didn't yell. I didn't throw my drink. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just walked out. Because what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I just signed a contract worth $7.5 million. And that Florida beach house I'd bought last year? Yeah. Fully paid off. View of the water. Hammock included. 3 weeks later, guess who started calling? Yup. Block number. Trying to FaceTime me at 2 a.m. Old Facebook messages from cousins I haven't spoken to since MySpace. A voicemail from my mom. Can we just talk like adults? Your father didn't mean it. Sure. Because when he screamed, Get out, you lowlife! What he really meant was, Please pay our property taxes again this year. Right. You ever grow up in a house where every compliment feels like a backhand and every silence is louder than a slap? That was my life. I was born the oops kid, 7 years younger than my golden boy brother and 15 IQ points below my parents' collective expectations. At least, that's how they treated me. While my brother was getting framed diplomas and brag posts on Facebook, I was getting passive-aggressive sticky notes on the fridge like, Maybe if you spent less time on that laptop and more time on your future, you wouldn't be working part-time. My first job was stocking shelves at a dollar store. My dad literally laughed when I told him I got hired. Laughed. Wow, he said mid-coffee sip. Didn't know they were hiring tech CEOs in aisle 5. He thought he was hilarious. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't fit their mold. I didn't want to go to college, and the moment I said that out loud, my mom clutched her pearls like I told her I'd joined a biker gang and taken up arson. You don't want to go to college? She gasped. What are you going to do then? Become one of those YouTube people? Selling socks online? Socks, no. Software? Maybe. But they didn't ask. They just kept pushing brochures at me like I was a broken vending machine they could fix with enough Ivy League paper. Eventually, I gave in. I applied to 2 schools, got into both, chose the cheaper one, and lasted 2 semesters. I dropped out quietly. Didn't even tell them at first. Just packed my things, moved into a tiny studio apartment that smelled like wet carpet and regret, and started freelancing online. I was broke. Like boiling rice in a coffee pot broke. But I was finally free. Every dollar I earned from coding felt like rebellion. I wasn't just building websites. I was building a way out. Meanwhile, at home, they were still calling me lazy. My mom once told a family friend at a barbecue, "He's doing some kind of internet thing. It's temporary." This was 3 years into running my own digital agency, with 6 clients and 2 part-time assistants. But here's the part that always stings the most. It wasn't the insults. It was the silence. They never asked how I was doing. Not once. Never asked about my business. Never wanted to know what I was building. The only time they cared was when someone else mentioned me. Like when a friend of theirs saw my company's ad on YouTube and texted, "Isn't this your kid's thing?" My mom's response, "Yeah, but I don't really understand what he does. It's all tech nonsense." She said that out loud to someone else. But I kept going. Built websites. Ran ads. Helped small businesses grow. Then medium ones. Then corporate ones. I slept 5 hours a night and answered emails like my rent depended on it, because it did. And slowly, my client list grew. I moved out of my sad little carpet apartment. Rented an actual office. Hired a team. Launched a course. Hit 6 figures. Then 7. And the funny part? The better I did, the less they respected it. Because I didn't have a degree. Because I didn't wear a suit. Because I didn't clock in. And because deep down, I think they knew I was doing something they couldn't control, and they hated that. The last straw wasn't a fight. It was a group family dinner when someone asked me how my business was going. I started to answer. My dad cut in. "He's still playing with his laptop. Don't encourage him." Everyone laughed. And I laughed too. But in my head, I started packing my emotional bags. Because I knew, no matter what I built, to them, I'd always be uneducated trash. So fine. Let them think that. Just don't ask me for help when the house needs a new roof. It started small. My dad's car broke down. Transmission blew out or something. I don't know. I tune out when he talks about anything involving oil. I heard him grumbling on the phone one night while I was visiting. $2,800? I might as well buy a whole new car. Ridiculous. I didn't say anything. But the next day, I called the repair shop, paid the bill anonymously, and had it released to him. He never asked questions. Just said, "Looks like the garage made a mistake." It was already paid when I showed up. I smiled. Wow. Lucky you? That was the moment I realized something. They loved what I could do. But they hated that I was the one doing it. After that, I became the family's unofficial and uncredited financial janitor. Medical bills? I handled them. Surprise tax letters? I found a CPA who fixed everything. My brother needed $15,000 to get out of a failed real estate flip. I wired it to him, no questions asked. And birthdays? Oh man, I went full Oprah. You get a MacBook. And you get a new fridge. And here's a weekend trip for 2 to a wine spa, Mom, even though you once called me a parasite in front of Aunt Jackie. I told myself I was doing it out of love. And maybe a tiny bit out of spite. Because nothing felt more satisfying than being called a failure and still picking up the check for dinner, without saying a word. The peak of my generosity insanity came the day I found out my parents were quietly trying to join the local country club. Keyword, trying. I overheard my mom whispering about the fees being a little steep, while she stirred instant coffee with a gold spoon she definitely didn't need. So what did I do? I called the club. Paid for their membership. Set up annual auto-renewal. Told the receptionist to keep it anonymous. Just say it's from a friend who believes in their swing. The next week, my mom posted a selfie on Facebook in front of the golf course with the caption, "Hard work pays off. So excited to start this new chapter, nail polish flag and whole #bless." I wasn't even tagged. It was like watching someone post a thank you note to God for the groceries you delivered to their door. Every time they had a crisis, I fixed it. Every time they made a snide remark, I swallowed it. Every time they dismissed my work, I smiled through my teeth. It became a toxic game I didn't even realize I was playing. How many ways can I prove I'm worth loving before they finally say it? Spoiler, they never did. The more I gave, the more I disappeared. The family group chat only lit up when someone needed something. My mom still introduced me to people as our son who works with computers. We're not really sure what he does. At one point, someone asked her if I was a hacker. Her response? Not officially, but who knows? It's all shady. I had just donated $10,000 to her church. You'd think by now I'd have pulled back. Stopped giving. But no. Because I thought maybe the next big gesture would do it. Maybe this time, they'd look at me like I mattered. So when my dad's heart problems landed him in the ER and the insurance didn't cover the full bill, I didn't blink. $42,000. Paid on the spot. I even told the hospital billing office to let them believe it was a billing correction. Because God forbid they find out their failure son just saved their retirement. And still I got hit with real jobs don't let you sit at home all day. You should have finished school like your brother. You're lucky the internet hasn't dried up yet. But here's the thing they never noticed. Every insult made me sharper. And every dollar I handed them was an invisible receipt, one I'd been quietly collecting. So that one night, when the insults finally hit critical mass and my dad called me a lowlife, he didn't realize I already had a full PowerPoint presentation of his debts in my Dropbox. And I was finally ready to press share. I should have known better. I got the invite a week earlier. Family dinner. Bring dessert if you can. Which in our household translated to, we want you here to show off the son we actually like, but hey, bring cake too, servant. It was supposed to be a celebration for my brother's promotion, which, from what I could tell, just meant his email signature got bolder font. I wasn't even going to go. But something inside me, probably the part of my soul that still hadn't learned its lesson, said maybe this time will be different. Spoiler, it was. But not in the way they hoped. Dinner started off fake nice. You know the type. Too many smiles. Jokes that land flat. My mom hovering like a pageant coach over a child who can't walk in heels. Everything was going fine until my dad got a little too comfortable after his second glass of wine. He leaned back, looked at me, and said, "So what do you even do all day? Still hacking the stock market or whatever?" The table laughed. Not politely. Actually laughed. Even my brother smirked. So I smiled. And said nothing. Until someone, I think it was an uncle, asked me how work was going. I gave a simple, honest answer. We just passed $15 million in annual revenue. The fork froze in my mom's hand midair like a mime paused in crisis. She recovered quickly. Well, that's lovely. Of course, it's not real revenue, though. You know how tech stuff is. It's like pretend business. Pretend business. The woman who used my money to retile her kitchen just called it pretend business. That's when something snapped. Not in a fiery, throw-my-chair way. But in that cold, clear, scary, calm kind of way. I looked across the table. Made eye contact with my brother. Then with my dad. And I said, "You know what's funny? My pretend business paid off your student loans, bro." Dead silence. And Dad, your surgery? That $42,000 insurance error? That was me. Now my mom's glass hit the table with a thud. I wasn't done. You know that country club you've been bragging about for the last 2 years? Networking with important people and all that? I smiled. That membership was a gift. From someone who apparently doesn't have a real job. You'd have thought I dropped a grenade on the table. My mom turned beet red. My brother looked like he just found out Santa wasn't real. My dad. He stood up. Again. Why is it always the dramatic standing? And with pure, red-faced fury, he pointed a trembling finger at me and yelled, "We've all pretended long enough. Get out of our lives, you lowlife." Boom. There it was. The moment. The words they'd been dying to say, and I'd been waiting to hear. I stood up. Calm. Unbothered. Placed my napkin gently on my untouched plate. Looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Okay." Then I turned to the rest of the table, gave them a slow little nod, and walked out. No yelling. No drama. Just quiet liberation. I walked to my car, pulled away, and smiled the whole ride home. Because they finally said it. And I finally believed them. I didn't belong there. Not because I was trash, but because I had outgrown the dump. It took them exactly 11 hours to start trying to undo it. I got my first voicemail at 7:13 a.m. the morning after the dinner. It was my mom, voice trembling like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "I don't know what that was last night, but you really hurt your father. You can't just throw money in people's faces like that. Can we just talk like adults?" Adults. Right. Because nothing says, mature discussion, like screaming, "Get out, you lowlife," at your own kid in front of the whole extended family. I didn't respond. Mostly because I was having the best sleep of my life. First time in years I'd woken up without that familiar weight on my chest, the one labeled, "Maybe today they'll respect you." Spoiler, they wouldn't. By noon, the guilt train had picked up steam. Missed calls. Texts. A Facebook message from my cousin that read, "Your mom's been crying all morning. This isn't like you. You're better than this." Better than what? Better than setting boundaries? Better than refusing to bankroll people who treat me like a half-baked disappointment in a hoodie? My favorite was from my brother. He sent a voice note, because of course he did, sounding like he was trying to sound casual but couldn't quite hide the panic. "Yo, so that money you sent last year for the business? I might need to clarify a few things. Can we chat? Buddy, the only thing getting clarified is that I'm not your angel investor/therapist anymore." They didn't miss me. They missed my money. And now that I had walked away, actually walked away, the entire ecosystem they'd built on my silence was crumbling. My mom's wine nights at the club. Over. My dad's precious golf buddies? Gone. My brother's subscription box startup? Dead in the water without my funding and free back-end help. And you know what? I still felt guilty. Because that's the trap, right? When you're raised in a house where love is conditional, saying no feels like a sin. Saying, "I don't want to be treated like trash anymore," feels selfish. Even when you know you're right, that voice creeps in. What if they're right? What if I'm the bad guy now? But then I'd remember. The years of silence. The birthday cards with no messages inside. The one time I got a cold and my mom said, "You should really get better before the family sees you like this." Not, "Are you okay?" Just, "Don't embarrass us." So yeah? Maybe I was being selfish. But it was the good kind of selfish. The kind where you finally stop setting yourself on fire to keep people warm. That week, I blocked every number that didn't come with kindness. I muted the family group chat. I stopped checking Facebook. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like I was waiting for someone's approval. I just existed. Peacefully. Alone. And that was enough. It's funny how quiet life gets when you stop being the family's 24/7 tech support, emotional punching bag, and bank. I moved into my Florida house the same week I blocked them. Ocean view. White walls. Minimalist everything, because after years of cluttered guilt and emotional debt, I wanted space. Literal and metaphorical. First morning there, I woke up at 7 a.m. not because of an alarm, but because I wanted to. Made black coffee. Sat on my balcony. Watched the sunrise spill across the water like warm gold. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to earn the right to breathe. No texts. No passive-aggressive comments. Just waves. I spent the next few weeks doing things that didn't make sense to my old life. Yoga on the deck. Reading books I hadn't touched in years. Actually taking the time to taste my food instead of inhaling it between Zoom calls and cousin emergencies. And then? I rebuilt. Not out of spite, but out of relief. I opened a new company account, scrubbed the old one of every joint transaction, and removed every last family tie. Clean slate. I hired a financial advisor, not to invest, but to protect. Because let me tell you something. It only takes one. We're family. Text to lose 30 grand and a piece of your sanity. Never again. Back home, or whatever I was calling home, before this, things weren't going great. A friend of a friend sent me a screenshot of my mom posting cryptic messages on Facebook. Some people forget where they came from. Pensive face, we raised you better than this. And yet, they had no problem cashing checks from that very same some person for 5 years straight. My brother's startup? He tried to rebrand it as a crypto thing, which was tragic. Then he posted a video on Instagram where he cried, real tears, about being abandoned by the people who should have had his back. Sir, I'm not a foster system. I was your unpaid CFO. My dad? He didn't post anything. But I got an email. Just subject line. We need to talk. No. Hi. No. Sorry. Just 4 words that somehow managed to be both threatening and desperate. I didn't open it. Didn't even hover over it. I hit archive. Then went outside to feed the seagulls. I used to dream about getting revenge. Like some big movie moment where I walk into the house in a 3-piece suit, and they all beg for forgiveness while I sip champagne and say, "You should have believed in me." But now, I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. Because the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's showing them they don't even get to matter anymore. That weekend I met a neighbor, older guy, gray beard, wore socks with sandals and no shame. We sat on the dock, tossing bread at fish and talking about life. When I told him I'd cut off my entire family, he just nodded and said, "Sometimes the trash takes itself out." I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my LaCroix. He patted me on the back and said, "Welcome to peace, kid. You earned it." And for once, I believed him. It started with a text from a random number. "Hey, this is your aunt. Your mom's really not doing well. You should call her." That was it. No punctuation, no hi, no context. Just pure guilt in a 13-word package. I stared at it, then back at my ocean view, then at my dog, who had more emotional intelligence than half my family. He blinked at me. We both agreed, nope. Then came the messages in batches. Instagram DMs from cousins I hadn't heard from since middle school. A Facebook friend request from my mom, which was wild, because the last time we were friends on there, she posted an article titled, "Are smartphones making our children lazy?" with my face in the comments saying, "You tagged me in this?" Then I got the voicemail. Not from her. Not from my brother. From my dad. Let me repeat that. The man who told me to get out, you lowlife, had suddenly remembered how voicemail works. It started calm, like he was reading a script from a community theater production of Atonement, Dad Edition. "Son, things got out of hand. We all said things we didn't mean." "Sure, man. Except you said it in front of 12 people, while pointing at me like I was a raccoon caught in the garage." Then came the real reason. "We're in a bit of a bind. Financially. The country club's giving us trouble, and your mom's medication costs jumped. Just wanted to talk. Talk. Right. Because when I wanted to talk, I got thrown out like leftovers that smelled a little weird." I didn't reply. But I did forward that voicemail to a separate folder I now keep called Emotional Boomerangs, for when the things they throw eventually come flying back. They didn't stop though. 3 days later, I got a full-on email essay from my mom. Subject: "We need to reconnect before it's too late." She used phrases like, "Families should never give up on each other." We were hard on you because we wanted you to be strong. Your brother misses you. He told me himself. She also attached a picture of the kitchen ceiling with water damage and said, "See what happens when families fall apart." Ma'am. That is a plumbing issue, not a metaphor. But the kicker, the part that made me laugh so loud I scared my neighbor's cat, was this line. "We didn't mean to call you trash." It was said in the heat of the moment. "You've always been important to us." "Oh? So I guess. Get out, you lowlife," was just an affectionate nickname now. Right up there with champ and slugger? Here's the thing, 3 months ago, I would have caved. I would have driven back with flowers and a check, ready to accept another half apology, and take a seat at the folding table of conditional love. But now, I didn't want back in. Because what they were offering wasn't reconciliation. It was relapse. A return to the role I used to play, quiet, generous, desperate to be included. And I'd outgrown that part. I wasn't auditioning anymore. So I sent one final message, short, clear, and devastatingly calm. "I'm glad you finally reached out. But I'm not interested in being part of this family dynamic again. I hope things work out for you. Please don't contact me further." And then I blocked them. All of them. I made a smoothie after that. Walked the dog. Watched the sunset with a playlist that didn't skip once. And for the first time since this whole mess began, I realized something. They weren't trying to come back into my life. They were trying to bring me back into theirs. But I'd already left that house. And I took the front door off the hinges on my way out. It's been 4 months. 4 months since the dinner. Since the voicemail. Since the last guilt-tripped attempt to drag me back into a version of myself that only existed to make them feel comfortable. Florida's been good to me. I wake up when I want. I eat breakfast slowly. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes. Because it's no longer followed by, "Can you just?" I have a real circle now. People who don't care what my GPA was, or how many letters are behind my name. People who don't flinch when I say, "I built something from scratch." They nod. Respectfully. Like I'm a person. Not a punchline. But the final test? It came last week. I was walking through a little street market, sunglasses on, smoothie in hand, minding my business, when I heard someone say my name. Not a stranger. Not a tourist. My brother. He was standing at a booth, trying to sell something, essential oils, I think? Or beard balm? I don't know, it looked sticky. His eyes lit up like a kid spotting an ice cream truck. "Hey!" he called. "I was hoping I'd run into you." Hoping? We hadn't spoken in 4 months. The last time I heard his voice, it was attached to a message about clarifying some financial stuff. I stopped. Turned. Took off my sunglasses just enough to make eye contact. He walked over like we were college buddies catching up, not two guys with a shared trauma folder called Mom and Dad's Expectations. "You look good," he said. "Seriously. Florida suits you." "Thanks." Small pause. Then came the pivot, the one I could see coming before he even opened his mouth. "I know things got weird. Emotions were high. But we're family, right?" I didn't answer. He continued. "Mom and Dad, they talk about you a lot. You know they miss you." They were just scared. Proud people. Stubborn. You know how it is. I sipped my smoothie. Then he said, "Anyway, I was thinking. Maybe we could catch up sometime? I've got this new idea. It's like an app meets subscription box meets lifestyle brand." There it was. The ask? Always the ask. I smiled politely. And then I said, "I wish you the best. But I've already invested in something else, peace." He blinked. Then chuckled awkwardly. "That's fair. That's cool, man." I gave him a nod, turned, and kept walking. No anger. No regret. No pain. Just a calm, quiet done. That night I sat on my balcony, laptop closed, inbox clear. The moon reflected off the water like it was proud of me. And I realized they might never apologize. They might never admit they were wrong. But I didn't need them to. Because closure doesn't always come in words. Sometimes, it comes in silence that finally feels safe. In distance that finally feels deserved. In living well, not to prove anything, but just because you finally can. They called me trash. I gave them treasure. They kicked me out. I built an empire. And when they tried to come back, I said nothing. Because that version of me, the one desperate for approval, he doesn't live here anymore. Only peace does.